This video is about one of Italy's reassuring stereotypes, the production of extra virgin olive oil from those olive groves that you see spreading out over rolling hills. But there is a threat to this typical image of Italy, which is creeping across the land from the south. Find out more about how Italians are still making olive oil today, and what the future may hold. In almost all Italian regions, you'll see olive trees spread across the landscape. Some are cultivated with annual pruning and fertilization, but others are left to grow wild. These particular trees are over 100 years old, but some could be significantly older. For most of the year, you can leave these hardy little trees alone, and they'll take care of themselves, until you get to October, when suddenly there is a burst of activity as everyone rushes around harvesting the olives and taking them to the local olive press to turn into gorgeous, freshly pressed, green, extra virgin olive oil. For small-scale olive production, this means putting down sheets around the trees and using something much like a rake to scrape downwards along the branches and bring the olives down onto the sheets, or even picking them off by hand one or two at a time. It is finger-aching work. Better prepared olive oil producers will use a long-handled vibrating tong to knock the olives off far more quickly. Large-scale producers use mechanical harvesting machines which grip the trunk of the tree and shake it at a very high frequency, making the olives fall. Olive oil connoisseurs say the more mechanical methods damage the olives, and unless they're immediately pressed, the olive oil won't be as good compared with the more traditional methods. But however you do it, someone will tell you that you're doing it all wrong. Once enough olives have been harvested to meet the minimum requirements for the olive press, they're taken to the mill. It is pretty chaotic at the olive mills, as all the local producers want their olives pressed at exactly the same time, but it more or less works out, even if the presses are operated into the early hours of the following day. The mills are largely what you would expect, with machines taking in the olives and a little trickle of extra virgin olive oil coming out the other end. There are some traditional mills, but given the need to press the olives as soon after picking as possible, this is one area in which modern efficiency is welcome. Some mills provide bread so you can make your bruschetta with olive oil which was literally pressed just a few minutes earlier. There's a lot of talk about the weight of the olives, the number of trees and how many litres were produced. In our case, around 80 largely neglected trees produced around 30 litres of olive oil after several days of several people working really hard to harvest the olives. This was generally considered to be a very poor output. The cost of harvesting and pressing the olives worked out at pretty much exactly the same as buying higher-end extra virgin olive oil from a supermarket, but it was still worth it. However, there are three main threats to olive production in Italy. The first is the Xylella bacteria, which appeared in Puglia in the south in 2013, and since then has gradually spread northwards. There is no real cure for it apart from destroying affected trees. In December 2022, it was reported that olive oil production in Puglia, which produces around 1/3 of Italian olives, was down by nearly half compared with the previous year. At the moment, all we can do is hope it doesn't spread any further. The second threat is climate change and drought. Olive trees are incredibly tough and long-lived, but they do need some water, and margins are thin, so even a smallish drop in production can be the difference between an economically viable harvest or leaving the olives on the trees. And finally, the post-war generations of Italians who cultivated olives are dying out, and it's harder and harder to find younger Italians who, for whatever reason, are interested or able to work on the olive trees at harvest time. Despite all this, I'm sure Italian olive oil production will continue. And in the meantime, I'm going to make the most of Italian olive oil, and my memories of making a few litres of it one finger-aching week in October. I do hope you enjoyed this video about olive oil production. If you'd like to see more videos about all things Italian, please do subscribe and click the like button, and I'll see you again soon.